Trump's Republican Party maintained its control of the Senate, but Democrats regained power in the House of Representatives in line with forecasts and polls. Now, Asian shares today remain mixed, with Tokyo's Nikkei dipping 0.33% to 22,085 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng was mostly unmoved at 26,127. The Shanghai Composite Index was 0.7% down to 2,641 points. Wall Street's major indexes closed higher on Tuesday as voters went to the polls in U.S. midterm congressional elections, and investors hoped the outcome would provide some relief for stocks after prolonged uncertainty. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.2% to 25,637 points. The S&P 500 gained just over 0.6% to 2,755 points, and the Nasdaq Composite a similar margin to close out the day at 7,375 points. For more on the markets, we cross to Arabile Gumede at the JSE. Arabile, a very different picture today to what we were seeing yesterday. Lots of green on the board today.
Yeah, certainly a lot of green there. And as you can tell, the board behind me sitting really in some positive territory there. The market really enjoying what has come out of the United States there. Perhaps one can call it a hung sort of state now when it comes to that seat of the House of Representatives and, of course, the Senate. But one can certainly say that democracy has certainly worked in some ways, and electorates have certainly come out and decided to vote as well and be a part of that United States story. So it certainly helps South Africa's currency as well, going firmly below 14 Rand against the US dollar. So some positivity coming through there. But let's take a look at how the European markets have traded alongside our very own. So much better sight to see there, isn't it? The Rand around 13 Rand 92 odd against the US dollar. Let's chat about all of that now. Michael Traherne, Portfolio Manager at Vestact Asset Management. Michael, thank you so much for your time. But nearly 1% gained on the JSE, the Rand below 14 Rand. All-round good board for today.
Yeah, great to see. I think the last time I was here, it was all red and the Rand was 14.50s. But now 13.94. Dollar weakness all around, though. It's not really a Rand story. It's more a dollar story. The big thing that people are betting on now is because Congress is in gridlock, you're going to see no major new laws coming through. That means probably not much more stimulus in potentially the form of more tax cuts, which Donald Trump was suggesting. And without a US economy getting more resurgence, investors saying, well, let's look elsewhere, let's see where else the growth is, and that's part of the emerging market story we're seeing today.
Yeah. Does this continue, though? Does this sort of gain momentum towards the end of the year? It probably was the big news story for the final quarter of the year. Does it continue to gain momentum and perhaps lead us into some distinct positive territory for the year? I know it's pretty ambitious, but it is a good start.
Yeah, so market's coming off a very low base. We're down, I think, still about 8% for the year, so it's got a lot of catching up to do just to get back to break even. But generally, this last 2 months going into the end of the year, you get what's called a Santa Claus rally. It doesn't always happen, but it definitely is a positive, particularly as the Northern Hemisphere gears up for next year. Also, I saw stats today, the last 18 midterms resulted in the market rising for the next 12 months.
Sure.
Look, the history doesn't reflect future, but it's just generally a trend because you've got more certainty coming through. You know what's going to be happening. Traders can position themselves accordingly and move forward from there.
Yeah, but we certainly don't know what's going to be happening, right? Especially with that US Congress. We sit there with, yes, a gridlocked situation in that United States Senate, but that tells you then that a lot of things aren't going to happen, as you said a little bit earlier, which means that you won't get any more movement, no stimulus perhaps in certain sections as well, which means that it may actually become a situation where the US doesn't offer anything for the rest of the world. And we're hopefully going to see that very soon with Jerome Powell set to come out and give his thoughts.
Yeah, so the irony here is gridlock means nothing happens. Nothing happening is certainty. Nothing's going to happen, and you can position yourself for what's the current environment. The biggest challenge coming up will be the next time there's a debt ceiling that needs raising in the US. Before, when the Republicans controlled House and Senate, it was easy to pass a bill through to raise the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bit trickier this time, where Democrats and Republicans are going to have to get compromises. Republicans want tax cuts, Democrats want to increase spending.
Yeah.
Those are two different ends of the scale, and where we're sitting at the moment is this massive US deficit, and because of the deficit, their debt is rising quicker than usual.
Yeah. Very quickly, your thoughts on how this changes the presidency of Donald Trump then? He used to be able to pretty much do whatever he wanted. Does that change now?
Yeah, I think we need to wait and see exactly which states were swing states, how close it was. For instance, in your Midwest, where it's predominantly farmers, they were impacted by the trade wars.
Yeah.
Did they vote Republican? Did they vote Democrat? And depending on that, you get a feel for what President Trump's policies are impacting the voters. All focus at the moment now moved to the 2020 election,
Yeah.
and gearing candidates and the rhetoric coming out of the White House to get as many voters and support as they can in 2020 to secure House and Senate again.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that perhaps isn't completely market related, but we've spoken about this off air, and that's just about Sandton City. And the reason I bring that up is because they've been able to fill all their vacancies, and that leads very much on to the retail space. Just taking a look at the board here, a few of those retailers doing pretty much a good job thus far. If you fill all your vacancies in a sought-after mall like Sandton City, that's a good prospect for where the South African economy currently sits, isn't it?
Yeah, so what's even more impressive is they've done it in a recession. It's easy, so to speak, to fill a mall when the economy is growing and the consumer's feeling good, and business is saying, okay, we're going to risk it, we're going to take this new shop. But Sandton City is showing that location is what matters. People are moving away from convenience to moving to a shopping experience, and that's what Liberty 2 Degrees, the guys who own Sandton, are trying to do in Sandton. You got your speciality shops, you're making it a shopping experience where people want to leave the house on a Saturday and go spend a couple of hours, and while they're there, drop a lot of money. So it's great to see getting new shops, Sportsman's Warehouse moving away from the big warehouse type stores to your more boutique store in a mall. Amani opening up there, and then LC Wakiki competition to H&M. So the consumers got more to choose from, which is always a good thing for a consumer.
Yeah, and as I've said before, it seems to be the retailers that you perhaps weren't always expecting to now have come into the local market and have really made an impact. It's not the outright usuals, shall we say, that have now come into South Africa's malls.
Yeah, I think it also emphasizes where the growth in our economy is going to come from. Yes, manufacturing is important. Yes, mining is important. But that's becoming less and less important, particularly from a job perspective. And if you had the choice of working underground or working in one of these retailers, you would much rather work at one of the retailers. And I think that's where government's got to focus on going forward, is that's where our growth is going to come from. Let's boost tourism, because tourists spend a lot of money at retailers, and that's where we can get economic growth. And it's attractive economic growth. I mean, you would much rather have lots of tourists coming in than worry about miners underground. It's just too tough down there.
Michael Traherne, appreciate your time there, Portfolio Manager at Vestac Asset Management. Just below 55,000 points is where the JSE All Share sits, around 13.94 there for a US dollar. So some positivity, as you see, an all green board as well behind me. That's where the buck stops this afternoon. Nzinga and Nompo Melelo joining you right after this.